Chapter 8 Planet of the Damned by Harry Harrison Read for LibriVox.org by Robbie Rogers. With each second the noise grew louder, coming their way. The track squeaked as the car turned around the rock spire, obviously seeking them out. A large carrier, big as a truck, it stopped before them in a cloud of its own dust, and the driver kicked the door open. "Get in here, and fast!" the man shouted. "You're letting in all the heat." He gunned the engine, ready to kick in the gears, and looked at them irritatedly. Ignoring the driver's nervous instructions, Brion carefully placed Lea on the rear seat before he pulled the door shut. The car surged forward instantly, a blast of icy air pouring from the air cooling vents. It wasn't cold in the vehicle, but the temperature was at least 40 degrees lower than the outer air. Brion covered Lea with all their extra clothing to prevent any further shock to her system. The driver, hunched over the wheel and driving with an intense speed, hadn't said a word to them since they had entered. Brion looked up as another man stepped from the engine compartment in the rear of the car. He was thin, harried looking, and he was pointing a gun. "Who are you?" he said, without a trace of warmth in his voice. It was a strange reception, but Brion was beginning to realize that this was a strange planet. The other man chewed at his lip nervously while Brion sat, relaxed and unmoving. He didn't want to startle him into pulling the trigger, and he kept his voice pitched low as he answered. "My name is Brand. We landed from space 2 nights ago and have been walking in the desert ever since. Now, don't get excited and shoot the gun when I tell you this. But both Vian and Isle are dead." The man with the gun gasped, his eyes widened. The driver threw a single frightened look over his shoulder, then turned quickly back to the wheel. Brion's probe had hit its mark. If these men weren't from the Cultural Relationships Foundation, they at least knew a lot about it. It seemed safe to assume that they were CRF men. "When they were shot, the girl and I escaped. We were trying to reach the city and contact you. You are from the Foundation, aren't you?" "Yes, of course," the man said, lowering the gun. He stared glassy-eyed into space for a moment, nervously working his teeth against his lip. Startled at his own inattention, he raised the gun again. "If you're Brad, then there's something I want to know." Rummaging in his breast pocket with his free hand, he brought out a yellow message form. He moved his lips as he reread the message. "Now, answer me, if you can. What are the last 3 events in the..." He took a quick look at the paper again. "In the 20s. Chess finals, rifle prone position, and fencing playoffs. Why?" The man grunted and slid the pistol back into its holder, satisfied. "I'm Faussel," he said, and waved the message at Brion. "This is Ihjel's last will and testament, relayed to us by the Nyjord blockade control. He thought he was going to die, and he sure was right. Passed his job on to you. You're in charge. I was Merv's second in command until he was poisoned. I was supposed to work for Ihjel, and now I guess I'm yours. At least until tomorrow, when we'll have everything packed and get off this hell planet." "What do you mean tomorrow?" Brion asked. "It's 3 days to deadline and we still have a job to do." Faussel had dropped heavily into one of the seats, and he sprang to his feet again, clutching the seat back to keep his balance in the swaying car. 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 minutes, what difference does it make? His voice rose shrilly with each word, and he had to make a definite effort to master himself before he could go on. "Look, you don't know anything about this. You just arrived and that's your bad luck. My bad luck is being assigned to this death trap and watching the depraved and filthy things the natives do, and trying to be polite to them even when they're killing my friends. And those Nyjord bombers up there with their hands on the triggers. One of those bombardiers is going to start thinking about home and about cobalt bombs down here. He's going to press that button, deadline or no deadline." "Sit down, Faussel, sit down and take a rest." There was sympathy in Brion's voice, but also the firmness of an order. Faussel swayed for a second longer, then collapsed. He sat with his cheek against the window, eyes closed. A pulse throbbed visibly in his temple and his lips worked. He had been under too much tension for too long a time. This was the atmosphere that hung heavily in the air at the CRF building when they arrived. Despair and defeat. The doctor was the only one who didn't share this mood as he bustled Lea off to the clinic with prompt efficiency. He obviously had enough patients to keep his mind occupied. With the others, the feeling of depression was unmistakable. From the instant they had driven through the automatic garage door, Brion had swum in this miasma of defeat. It was omnipresent and hard to ignore. As soon as he had eaten, he went with Faussel into what was to have been Ihjel's office. Through the transparent walls he could see the staff packing the records, crating them for shipment. Faussel seemed less nervous now that he was no longer in command. Brion rejected any idea he had of letting the man know that he himself was only a novice in the Foundation. He was going to need all the authority he could muster, since they would undoubtedly hate him for what he was going to do. Better take notes of this, Faussel, and have it typed. I'll sign it. The printed word always carried more weight. All preparations for leaving are to be stopped at once. Records are to be returned to the files. We are going to stay here just as long as we have clearance from the Nyjorders. If this operation is unsuccessful, we will all leave together when the time expires. We will take whatever personal baggage we can carry by hand. Everything else stays here. Perhaps you don't realize that we are here to save a planet, not file cabinets full of papers. Out of the corner of his eye he saw Faussel flush with anger. As soon as that is typed, bring it back, and all the reports as to what has been accomplished on this project. That will be all for now. Faussel stamped out, and a minute later Brion saw the shocked, angry looks from the workers in the outer office. Turning his back to them, he opened the drawers in the desk, one after another. The top drawer was empty, except for a sealed envelope. It was addressed to Winner Ihjel. Brion looked at it thoughtfully, then ripped it open. The letter inside was handwritten. Ihjel, I've had the official word that you are on the way to relieve me, and I am forced to admit I feel only an intense satisfaction. You've had the experience on these outlaw planets and can get along with the odd types. I've been specializing in research for the last 20 years, and the only reason I was appointed planetary supervisor on Nyjord was because of the observation and application facilities. I'm the research type, not the office type. No one has ever denied that. You're going to have trouble with the staff, so you had better realize that they are all compulsory volunteers. Half are clerical people from my staff. The others, a mixed bag of whoever was close enough to be pulled in on this crash assignment. It developed so fast we never saw it coming, and I'm afraid we have done little or nothing to stop it. We can't get access to the natives here, not in the slightest. It's frightening. They don't fit. I've done Poisson distributions on a dozen different factors, and none of them can be equated. The Pareto extrapolations don't work. Our field men can't even talk to the natives, and 2 have been killed trying. The ruling class is unapproachable, and the rest just keep their mouths shut and walk away. I'm going to take a chance and try to talk to Liege Magte. Perhaps I can make him see sense. I doubt if it will work, and there is a chance he will try violence with me. The nobility here are very prone to violence. If I get back all right, you won't see this note. Otherwise, goodbye, Ihjel. Try to do a better job than I did. Aston Merv. P.S. There is a problem with the staff. They are supposed to be saviors, but without exception they all loathe the Disans. I'm afraid I do too. Brion ticked off the relevant points in the letter. He had to find some way of discovering what the Pareto extrapolations were without uncovering his own lack of knowledge. The staff would vanish in 5 minutes if they knew how new he was at the job. Poisson distributions made more sense. It was used in physics as the unchanging probability of an event that would be true at all times, such as the number of particles that would be given off by a lump of radioactive material during a short period.